Welcome everybody out to episode 342, the Takt production system, part 6. Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're doing well. We're going to keep reading the book and we're going to continue this section that is titled On Site. When David got to One Care on Monday morning, he tried to be objective about his observations. Brad was busy fighting fires, answering questions, and solving problems, all predictable actions based on the trouble the project was having. As David made his way around the site, he saw that the project was well designed and fairly organized. There were about 120 people currently on site. At its peak, the project would have 380 workers. David could see there was care there, but it wouldn't safely sustain the increase of workers. The site was a little cluttered and not clean enough. Cleanliness was always a key indicator of project success and a clear signal that the project had some fundamental issues. David moved on to inspect the porta potties. 3 out of 4 were a disgusting mess, and there was a significant amount of graffiti. It was evident to him that the project workers were not happy. That fact was reaffirmed as David watched the concrete crew putting in work. They seemed rushed and frustrated and spent a significant amount of time and effort moving around and finding supplies. It was an uncoordinated frenzy to get things placed. The bottom line was that they were going too fast and the project wasn't especially stable. After observing the team in action for a few days, it was clear that the dates would shift from week to week. The implementation of Last Planner by the interior and exterior teams and Scrum for the medical equipment team was well organized, but they were rendered inefficient with the instability of the master schedule. No team, no matter how proficient they were, could thrive in an environment when the target is always moving. The project was simply moving too fast and was too chaotic. There might have been other unforeseen complications, but it seemed that his initial suspicions about the project were correct. David was hopeful that an adjusted pace would stabilize the project and give the team and their lean systems a chance to be successful. Takt would be the best solution. However, implementing it mid-project would be hard on the on-site team. David was excited for the opportunity. The problem. David, it's good to see you again. Have you recovered from rafting? Olivia asked as David entered the room for their ad hoc meeting that Friday afternoon. He was carrying his supplies and usual visual aids that included 2 2-liter water bottles and a large plastic bucket. I think today is the first morning I haven't been sore, but I absolutely loved rafting. I already booked an excursion to take my boys, so it was both painful and life-altering, probably the way my suggestions for this project will be. While some in the room raised their eyebrows and glanced around, Olivia just laughed at his announcement. Please share, she said. Everyone is here and has been brought up to speed. We're ready for your assessment and to know the reason you're carrying such large water bottles. I'm kind of thirsty, Paul said. David smiled. He hadn't seen much of Paul on site, but knew that he was the project manager. First, I'd like to start with a demonstration. I need 2 volunteers and someone to keep the time. You know I'm in, said Juan. As the regional scheduling manager, he didn't often work on site, but he'd already told David he was interested in learning from him. He also said that when he'd initially suggested hiring Elevate, he didn't know what to expect, but his intent was to leverage success by outsourcing problems beyond his scope of work. David appreciated his candor and his willingness to take a risk. I haven't really been available all week, so I'll be a team player and raise my hand, said Brad. I can keep the time, Paul called out as he held up his phone. Thanks, team. Brad, can you please take this bottle? And Juan, you take this one? The point of this exercise is to pour the water into the bucket the fastest without squeezing the bottle. We'll have Brad go first. I've got this, said Brad, turning the bottle over with an exaggerated flourish. David laughed. Your enthusiasm is infectious and your form is awesome, but you were supposed to wait until I said go. Paul, were you rolling when he did that? Yep, it took 10 seconds. Okay, 10 seconds, that's good. 1. When you tip yours over, I want you to gently swirl the bottle around and create a vortex inside like a tornado. Isn't that cheating? Juan asked. Well, it isn't really a race. It's just a demonstration of two techniques. You ready? Okay, go. The team's interest was piqued when Paul called out 5 seconds. There was laughter at Brad's disappointed shrug. I never had a chance. I'm sitting down, Brad joked as he took his seat. David looked around at the surrounding faces. Okay, so what happened? We don't know, said Paul, but Juan's better at it. Hey, my bottle was rigged, Brad protested. I promise it wasn't rigged, but what kept him from winning? David asked the group. The air. It kept holding back the water and slowed it down, Olivia said. Exactly. Think of it like this. The air is like roadblocks and the water is the product. The roadblocks kept starting and stopping the work because you were trying to push it through all at once. So why did Juan's go so fast? It can't just be because he's the schedule master with genius ideas, Olivia teased. I'm glad you asked, replied David. What did you observe in the second attempt? Let's consider what Juan did that was different. Well, when he spun it, it created a vortex. Olivia was catching on quick. The water left room for air to come up by heading in a common direction. Exactly, said David. When we get the product heading in a stable direction, in a flow, and create a space or pace for roadblocks to rise to the surface, work or water, in this case, can proceed unhindered. He could feel the team was on the verge of a breakthrough. How does that apply to this project? Asked Juan. I know it's been tossed around, but I don't think you have a people problem here. I think this is a problem with flow. To be candid with you, the team is not headed in the same direction. The plans change, those changes get pushed through, then every roadblock slows down the work and creates variation. I think your problem is exactly what we talked about at our offsite. You need to regulate the pace of the project, create stability, and then your problems will rise to the surface faster and you can remove them before they impact work. What you need is tact. He paused to let them reflect for a moment before he continued. You have masterfully implemented Last Planner and Scrum with your medical equipment teams, but those systems, and more importantly your team, cannot win this game when the goal changes every day. Design, procurement, the schedule, and the start of work all need to be leveled and stabilized, and tact is the only way to do that. That is why your trades can't commit and meet dates or even enjoy the system. The supply chain is not stable, and we are going too fast. Have you ever heard the quote, flow where you can, pull where you can't? You have pull, and you know how to push, but you need to start first with flow. Your scheduling system is broken and needs an immediate fix. David sat quietly as he listened to the One Care team discuss the presentation and the possible need to implement an entirely new system. While there was no outright opposition, he got the feeling that there were team members who were not sold on the validity of his assessment. The team eventually decided to give it the weekend before any decisions were made. Olivia looked at David and said, Now that you've explained it a little bit, we'd like you to present a more detailed plan for implementation of Takt. We need to see what that would look like. Is that doable? Absolutely, I'll be ready. David could see that he had their attention, and from some of them, their support. It would be interesting to see how things would play out Monday. Trains. When Olivia was home with her family that weekend, true to her nature, she was energetic and completely engaged. During her downtime, she was able to set her work life aside and focus on her family. And that Saturday morning meant planning, studying, and engineering. Josie, her 4-year-old, was the most important and truly the most demanding project owner she had ever worked with. The wooden railway system was complex and required all of Olivia's attention, and Josie's change orders meant that construction was perpetually ongoing. As a reward for her hard work and for this current awesome design, Josie let her mom play with the pink engine for a bit. They circled the trains through the loops and onto the sidings, added freight cars, and shunted them back and forth to the stations and roundhouses. Trying to stay mentally engaged, Olivia made a crashing noise and toppled a tree onto the track just ahead of where Josie was headed with her gray engine and a line of 6 freight cars. "Oh no, lightning knocked over that tree," Olivia said. "What will you do?" Josie looked up in surprise by the unexpected occurrence. "I'm going to push it out of my way, Mama." And she continued on as the wooden tree was easily pushed aside. Olivia posed a harder problem this time as she placed several of the wooden animals from the train sets on the track. The animals broke through the fence. "You're going to have to go back." "Mama, this cow catcher can push them off the track. Get out of my way," she yelled as she plowed them off the line. Olivia watched, questioning whether Thomas the Tank Engine would have approved of Josie's strategy for the handling of the blocked line, but also thinking about the intended purpose of this alleged cowcatcher. After a quick internet search, she was surprised to see that Josie was right. That iron guard was designed to clear obstacles. Olivia filed that concept away and returned her focus to Josie. In her zealous track clearing, she had knocked over the suspension bridge, and repairing it was top priority. The meeting. On Monday afternoon, the One Care Project leadership team assembled ready to discuss the possible implementation of Takt. With plenty of time over the weekend, everyone had reflections on how to implement Takt and assumptions about what it was. Olivia was eager to share the insight she had gained while playing with Josie. "I appreciate everyone clearing their schedule to be here. We have lots to discuss and plenty to think about. I've got some insights and news to cover, but first I'd like to let David walk us through what implementing Takt could mean for the project." "Thanks, Olivia," David said as he positioned himself next to the projector screen. The word takt means rhythm. It indicates the beat or the rate of flow for something. Takt planning is essentially a planning system that incorporates flow, stability, and a certain amount of predictability. If you use this system for preparing work and setting milestones for the last planner and scrum teams, they will have targets they can hit and a game they can win. This slide shows a Takt plan for the interiors of a building. As you can see, each 10,000 square foot area is broken out into sequences by Takt zone. Each of these are designed to stagger, which means Area A starts on the first week of August and Area B on the third week of August, and we hold the dates. "Hold the dates? What does that mean?" Brad interrupted. "Well, that means we don't move the dates around unless the team decides together that it can be done and that it needs to be done," David answered. "We will never get anything finished like that," replied Brad as he sat back in his chair and visibly disconnected. David pressed on in spite of losing the super. "When you move the dates in a schedule like this, trades begin to bring out too many materials, and we then have an excess of material inventory. When we've got too much inventory, we spend so much time managing it that we don't get enough time to actually install the work. The same concept applies to managing a chaotic schedule. If we're always managing the variation that comes from a changing schedule, we're distracted from seeing and removing any roadblocks that occur. We have to have the right pace and stability. That comes from Takt in order to pre-plan and make work ready. You see, when there's a bunch of chaos, all we can see is the rough water. We can't see the rocks. To be blunt, CPM doesn't really work, and it pushes us in a frenzied, chaotic rush." "Hold on a minute. I make a living using CPM," said Juan. "I understand why you're feeling defensive. This is all new information, but it's the truth. The proper use of Takt will fix this. If we still need to use CPM because it's a requirement, at the very least we need to align CPM with the Takt flow and rhythm. Let me show you what this looks like. Do you see these processes on each interiors of this hospital? This next line starts 2 weeks later and represents the next 10,000 square foot area of the floor. The columns are weeks and the rows are areas or zones. The colored boxes in the sequences are activities. You can see how each trade flows in a consistent way through the building one after another." "I would like to interject something here," Olivia said. "This weekend I was playing trains with my daughter. I started tipping over trees and putting things onto the track in her way, and she kept going through them. Do you know what she told me? She said the cowcatcher, yes, I had to look that up because I don't watch as much Thomas and Friends as she does. But anyway, the cowcatcher is the triangular attachment at the front of the engine that's used to clear the path, to clear the track. David, your sequence looks a lot like a train. Another thing is that trains start and stop on time when they arrive at the station in a certain rhythm. Do you think that we could use a train analogy instead of the river? I love that, said David. Let's turn it into a train analogy. Let me regroup for a moment. Okay, so flow as a train. He began as Olivia turned back to her notes. So here's how we can explain it. Each of these processes by 10,000 square feet are trains now. In fact, let's call them Takt trains. Each of the scopes of work, let's call those the Takt freight cars or wagons. The team seemed to pay more attention as he wrote this on the whiteboard. If the Takt train is the process, then the front engine is the preparation team making that area ready. The cow catcher at the front is the roadblock removal system. For this system to work, we have to clear the tracks. The tracks are operations, meaning the foundation. The rails, meaning the thing that really makes Takt go fast, is prefabrication. Leveling the track in the first place is key to keeping a good pace. Roadblocks need to be removed ahead of the train, and would be hills and valleys needed to be leveled. If there are mountains, these are constraints. These are the things that we just have to work around. I'm really starting to see it, Olivia spoke up with excitement in her voice. I'm glad I didn't derail you by forcing the train issue. If changing it to a train didn't, your little joke probably did, Juan teased. Not at all. I'm still picking up steam, David smirked as he groaned. But seriously, for this analogy to work, we need a few more definitions. The speed of the train is the tack time, and the rate at which the trains arrive at the next station is called throughput. You see, the key is to get each car going at the right speed in a stable environment, which means a level track headed toward the next station at a consistent rate. If we do that, it isn't chaotic. If we keep the system moving just like a train yard, then all of your short interval systems will work predictably. He paused to let them absorb everything. What I'm proposing is that we create a master project tact plan that shows when every tact zone will be completed in a rhythm. This will unify everyone and get people working to the same rhythm: workers, materials, information, and ultimately the completion of design. If we can get everything working to the same beat, then all the resources will be available for your last planner and Scrum systems. All the day-to-day planning will be easy because those systems have predictable supply chains and the things they need. Right now, you plan well together, but the absence of resources always slows you down and interrupts your plans. No matter how well you do with Last Planner and Scrum, you will not succeed until you have a predictable supply chain. All those systems need is Takt to succeed. Using Takt means that you will have the time to remove roadblocks in a system like this, and enough time to finish as you go. Implementing it will not be easy, and you'll have to move now. One more thing, David added. Takt is only one part. There are meeting systems and certain operational tactics we would need to implement to really gain time out in the field. Everyone would need to buy in and understand these as well. As the team listened to David explain the meeting system, worker conditions, and operations on site, they began to get a clear picture of what the next steps would hold. He was suggesting a complete overhaul, starting with respectful field conditions for workers, stabilizing all operations, and continuously improving. Olivia took a moment to add the new expectations to her growing list. She was surprised that she wasn't overwhelmed by the proposed changes. Instead, she was grateful that David had an actual plan to solve their problems. Everyone on the team was putting in a massive amount of effort on a daily basis, and it seemed like Takt would give the team optimal output. Olivia made some train analogy notes. Land survey equals determining takt time and throughput. Design of the railway system equals takt plan. Clearing the path and making a level track equals leveling trades and contracts. Railroad ties equals operations or how the site is run. Rails equals prefabrication. Cowcatcher equals roadblock removal. Front engine equals pre-planning team. Engineers equals a high-performing team. Takt wagons equals workers, information, and equipment. Contents of wagons equals work product. Caboose equals finish as you go. Speed of the train equals takt time. Arrival sequence of trains to the station equals throughput. Mountains equals constraints. Weather equals burden on the system. Plan. Create project tack plan, discuss with OneCare, rally trades, issue $0 change orders, implement fast, see that everyone's heading in the same direction. Method. Improve worker conditions, stabilize all operations, measure continuous improvement. Thank you, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this brief section. I think we went about 20 minutes. The next section on our journey is titled Dissension. And then we will really wrap up this fable and get into the content. But I really hope you're enjoying yourself and that you can really learn from the Takt production system. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing,